The second Caliph of Islam, Umar Bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu. Umar Bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala khatamin nabiyyin amma ba'd fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulullah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabiyullah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Noorallah. Dear viewers of Madani Channel, we're back once again with another new episode of our program, the second Caliph of Islam, Umar Bin Khattab radiyallahu anh. And we are discussing the matters after he became the Caliph, after he became the leader of believers. Dear viewers, today we will talk about the benefit system that Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh introduced within his caliphate, where he helped the people financially who were under his rule. So he radiyallahu anh appointed a set amount of income benefit system like we have in welfare states. So Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh in that time made his caliphate, the Islamic kingdom of the time, he radiyallahu anh made that into a welfare state where widows, where orphans, where soldiers, where other individuals, they were helped financially. They were given financial stipend. They were given benefits on monthly basis to look after their needs. This was Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh who introduced this system of welfare more than 1400 years ago. And we can see, dear viewers, that in today's day and age, in many countries, this welfare system is followed and they're also looked upon with a very positive side, that they're looking after their people, they're looking after their citizens. But Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh, dear viewers, at that time, he introduced this. So you can imagine what great economic acumen he radiyallahu anh possessed, that he increased the wealth of Islamic empire of the time, the treasury of the time, to such an extent where people within the state, they were given financial aid, they were given a stipend, they were given wadhaif, they were given benefits on monthly basis depending on which category did they fall in. So Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh had categorized, there were different categories within that time, whether someone's an orphan, whether widow, whether soldier, whether muhajir sahabi, whether he's from the Ahlul Bayt, depending on which category did an individual fall. So based on that was the appointed amount of financial help that they would receive. This was Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh, and today inshallah we will talk about this, discuss this in a bit detail, but very briefly, inshallah. But before that, we'll first of all listen to a virtue of sending peace and salutations upon the noble Prophet, the final messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. The second Caliph of Islam, Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anh, states that your du'as remain suspended between the earth and the heavens until you send salat upon the Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. So dear viewers, as we spoke earlier, that Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh introduced the system of welfare, system of benefits, financial aid within his caliphate, where people, depending on which category did they fall in, he radiyallahu anh would provide them with financial aid, with financial incentive on monthly basis. And this was the welfare system whose example was not seen before that, and it was completely unprecedented. And in order to achieve this, of course, there was so much hard work required for the state to be self-sufficient, to be economically very strong, so that this system could be implemented. And Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh, through his brilliant economic acumen, he brought the state to such a position where the citizens, they could be looked after financially, and based on which category they were in, they were looked after financially, they were given financial aid, and they were very well off during the time of Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anhu. So inshallah we'll briefly discuss this in today's episode. Dear viewers, Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anhu's love for the Ahlul Bayt, for the family of the Prophet ﷺ was immense. So he mentions that if the wealth of spoils of war, of ghanimat, the fifth of it reaches in Iraq, then I would not leave any Hashimi without being married, and he who would not have a maidservant, a kaniz, a servant, then I would provide a servant for him. Allahu Akbar. Now dear viewers, at another occasion, Sayyiduna Zakwan rahmatullah alayhi states, who was he? He was the servant of Mu'mineen Sayyidatuna Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu anha. So he says that once Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh received a bag, which we refer to as a lady's bag in today's day and age. So many companions who saw that bag, they couldn't even guess the amount of that bag. So Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh said that if people allow me, then I would give it to Sayyidatuna Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu anha, because the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam loved her immensely. And everyone, they happily gave this permission to him, and Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh sent that bag for Sayyidatuna Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu anha. Allahu Akbar. This was his love for those who were beloved to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dear viewers, just imagine for a second that if we are in such a position and we receive something fine of this quality, of course our household will be the first priority. But yet Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh prioritized the household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At one occasion, dear viewers, Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh, he wrote to Hudhayfa bin Yaman radiyallahu anh. He instructed him to give people their wadhaif, their benefits, the financial dues that were due for those people, they should be given. So Hudhayfa bin Yaman radiyallahu anh, he distributed everything, and even after that, some wealth was left over. So he wrote back to Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh that some wealth is left over. So Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh replied to him that the wealth that is left over, distribute that as well, because it is their wealth which Allah has given them. It is not Umar's or Umar's children's. Allahu Akbar. Look at these wordings, dear viewers, that even after distributing the wealth that is left over, Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh, look at the wording. He says that distribute the leftover wealth amongst them as well, as it is their wealth which Allah has given to them. It is not Umar's or Umar's children's. Allahu Akbar. So dear viewers, this is the greatness of Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh, and how he radiyallahu anh would fear Allah Almighty, and how he radiyallahu anh looked after other people. On one occasion, dear viewers, Sayyiduna Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh distributed silk shawls to the women of Medina. And now, after distributing those shawls, one very fine shawl was left. So some people, they said to him that, O Amirul Mu'mineen, you may give this shawl to your wife, Sayyidatuna Kulthum radiyallahu anha. To which he radiyallahu anh said, Sulayd is more deserving of this, because she pledged allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she would bring vessels of water for us in the battle of Uhud. Allahu Akbar. Dear viewers, Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh, who had all the rights and all authority to give that very fine shawl, silk shawl, to his wife, but yet he radiyallahu anh prioritizes someone else over his own family. And this is not something easy to do. When even if he radiyallahu anh had given it to his own honorable wife, it would have been justifiable, it would have been fine, absolutely permissible. But even in this case, he radiyallahu anh prioritized someone else. Now, dear viewers, another norm that was followed in those days was that whenever there would be a war, now how it would get started is that one person from each armies would come face to face, and they would fight individually. And the person who would kill the other person, he would be deserving of the wealth and everything of the other person. So at one occasion, Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh sent Sayyiduna Qatada radiyallahu anh to fight the enemy. And Qatada radiyallahu anh, he overcame the enemy, he killed the enemy. And the enemy, he had a very precious necklace, you can say, in his custody, whose value was 15,000 dirhams. So Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh, he gifted that very necklace to Sayyiduna Qatada radiyallahu anhu. Whereas again, he could have taken that within the spoils of war. He could have distributed that whichever way he wanted, or kept it for himself, or given to one of his followers or his family members. But he radiyallahu anhu gave it to Sayyiduna Qatada radiyallahu anhu. Subhanallah. Now dear viewers, one form of wealth that is acquired from the enemy is called male fay, the wealth of fay, meaning that wealth which one acquires from the enemy without fighting a war. So regarding this, Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anhu mentioned that by Allah, it is not that only I am deserving of wealth of fay. In fact, every person is deserving of it. And by Allah, there isn't anyone amongst Muslim who does not have a share in this wealth, meaning the wealth of fay. However, its distribution would be in line of the categories, in line of the ways of Quran and Sunnah, the way it's been prescribed in Quran and Sunnah for its distribution. This is how it would be distributed. For example, the categories which would be considered is that how old is one in Islam? How early did he accept Islam? What difficulties did he bear for the sake of Islam? Does he have a family? What calamities did he go through in Islam? How needy he is, etc. And then he further says that by Allah, if I stay alive, then a shepherd grazing goats on the mountain of Sana'a, even he will get his share from this very wealth, whereas he would be grazing his goats. Allahu Akbar. Look at the justice of Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anhu, that even the wealth of fay, he radiyallahu anhu is making sure that everyone gets their shares. And to the extent that a shepherd grazing his goats on the mountain of Sana'a, he says that if I stay alive, by Allah, he says that even he will get his share from this very wealth. Allahu Akbar. On one occasion, dear viewers, Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh said that by Allah, until the wealth keeps increasing, I'll keep increasing the benefits, the amounts of people that are given to them. And I will complete the appointed amount for them. I will give them abundantly, in great quantity, because the wealth that is being given to them, it belongs to them. Allahu Akbar, subhanallah. Sayyiduna Jabir bin Abdullah radiyallahu anh narrates that as soon as Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh became the Caliph, he radiyallahu anh appointed financial incentives, the benefit system, he implemented that. He established revenue offices, and he introduced people to each other. And Jabir bin Abdullah radiyallahu anh says that Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh introduced me to my companions. Subhanallah. So again, dear viewers, Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh, he introduced this welfare system, benefit system, the financial aid system from the government to its citizens. It was Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh who initiated it, who started it. He was the one who formed revenue offices for this entire system to run in an organized and formal manner. So Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh, this was his foresightedness. This was his vision that he implemented, that he executed. And we can see that during the Caliphate of Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh, subhanallah, not only the boundaries of Islam were spread far and wide, but the citizens of this empire, of the Caliphate of Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh, they were self-sufficient. They were financially well looked after, and their needs were fulfilled. Sayyiduna Abu Huraira radiyallahu anh, once he came the court of Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh from Bahrain with the wealth of spoils of war. And Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh asked him that, how much wealth have you brought? So he replied, 500,000 dirhams. So Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh says that, do you know what you are saying? And he replies that, yes, Huzur, 500,000 dirhams, meaning 100,000, 100,000, 100,000, 100,000, 100,000. So Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh said to him that, come back tomorrow morning. So Abu Huraira radiyallahu anh leaves and comes back the next morning. And next morning, Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh asked him again that, how much wealth did you bring? So he replied the same, he gave the same answer. And now he radiyallahu anh, he held a council regarding how should such a big amount of wealth be distributed. To which one Sahabi radiyallahu anh gave a suggestion that a register should be made with the names of people. So names of people should be recorded in a register. So Farooq-e-Azam radiyallahu anh, then he brought into practice a register in which the names of people were recorded, and then they were distributed this wealth accordingly. Subhanallah. Dear viewers, there's so much that we can learn from only this one account. On one side we have Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, who brings such great amount of wealth and presents it in the court of Farooq Azam radiallahu anh with honesty, duly, to last penny. This is Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh. So what do we learn, dear viewers? That unfortunately, if we are positioned at such a rank where we are supervising certain resources, and there is a chance that a person can steal some resources and there wouldn't be any accountability on him, then comes the test of honesty, then comes the test of Iman, one's Iman. What is our state? How do people, what is the result that people get when they're tested in such a way? But Allahu Akbar, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, last penny brings everything in the court of Farooq Azam radiallahu anhu. And Farooq Azam radiallahu anhu, Allahu Akbar, how to distribute it, how to look after the citizens of my state. He holds a council. And in the most organized manner, a register is formed. People's names are written and everything is distributed amongst them. Allah, Allah. Dear viewers, such examples are unprecedented in the history of mankind. The time when Farooq Azam radiallahu anh implemented all this, it was totally unprecedented. Such examples were not witnessed ever before. Now, dear viewers, how Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, he implemented wazaif, these benefits. At one occasion, it is stated that he radiallahu anh sent Umar bin Yasir radiallahu anh, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh, and Uthman bin Hunayf radiallahu anh to Kufa. And Umar bin Yasir radiallahu anh was appointed as the head over the matters of salah, etc. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh was made the judge, and he was made the head of the treasury. And Uthman bin Hunayf radiallahu anh was made the head of the measurement of ground. And the wage that was stipulated for them was 1 goat on daily basis for all 3 of them. And how was this distributed amongst them? Ammar bin Yasir radiallahu anh, for him was half a goat, and 1/4 each for Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh and Uthman bin Hunayf radiallahu anh. So this again can be seen that how greatly Farooq Azam radiallahu anh appointed certain responsibilities to certain Sahaba, and how they were looked after from the perspective of welfare. Once, dear viewers, when it came to distribute funds, it was said to Farooq Azam radiallahu anh that please start from yourself, start distributing from yourself. And he said, no. And then how does he start distributing? He starts distributing from those who were closest to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So first of all, he distributes to Sayyiduna Abbas radiallahu anh, then Sayyiduna Ali al-Murtaza karramallahu wajhahu al-kareem, and then to 5 other tribes. And then at the end, he distributed in his own tribe, meaning Adi bin Ka'b. So again, dear viewers, we can see the love for the Prophet ﷺ that Farooq Azam radiallahu anh had, that he would distribute to them first, and for his own self, he would keep it to last. Even people are saying that, Huzur, you should start distribution from your own self. But he says, no, starts from those who are the closest to the Prophet ﷺ and keeps himself to the end. Allahu Akbar. Now, dear viewers, when we talk about the benefits, the financial incentives or financial aid, whichever way you want to put it as, that he stipulated for Muhajireen Awwaleen, those Muhajir Sahaba, migrant Sahaba, who migrated in the very early days of Islam. So regarding them, Sayyidina Nafi radiallahu anh narrates that Amirul Mu'mineen Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, he had appointed 4,000 dirhams as benefits, as stipend for Muhajireen Awwaleen Sahaba alayhimu ridwan. However, at this point, when we have determined that those Sahaba who migrated in the early days of Islam, they were allotted 4,000 dirhams as benefits for them. But Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, who's the son of Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, he's also amongst those companions, keep in mind. So for them is 4,000 dirhams, and for his own son, he allots only 3,500, not 4,000, 3,500. And now people, they asked him that, what is the reason for this? And now he says that his parents, meaning he himself, they brought him along with them during migration. He did not migrate on his own or himself. It was his parents who brought him along with themselves during migration. This is the reason why he radiallahu anh appointed only 3,500 dirhams for his son. Yet for other Sahaba of the same category, he gives 4,000 dirhams. Again, look at the justice. That no one can raise fingers upon Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, that he prioritized his own children first. He prioritized his own family over others. No one can raise fingers, dear viewers. This was the justice of Farooq Azam radiallahu anh and farsightedness of Farooq Azam radiallahu anh. Subhanallah. Now, dear viewers, when we talk about the female companions, Muhajirat Awwaleen, who migrated in the early times, subhanallah, Farooq Azam radiallahu anh appointed 1,000 dirhams as benefits for them. And amongst those Sahabiyat were also the honorable wife of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, who was Sayyidatuna Asma bint Umais, the beloved daughter of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, Sayyidatuna Asma bint Abi Bakr, and the honorable mother of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh, Sayyidatuna Umm Abd radiallahu anhun. These honorable women were also amongst those Sahabiyat who were allotted 1,000 dirhams of benefits for themselves. When it came to Ansar Sahaba, Farooq Azam radiallahu anh appointed 4,000 dirhams of benefits for them. Those companions who participated in the Battle of Badr, Farooq Azam radiallahu anh allocated 5,000 dirhams of benefits for them. And as for the children of those who participated in the Battle of Badr, but those children themselves, they didn't participate, but their parents participated in the Battle of Badr. For those children, Farooq Azam radiallahu anh appointed 4,000 dirhams. And then, dear viewers, when it comes to slaves, there were 3 slaves who participated in the Battle of Badr. For them, Farooq Azam radiallahu anh appointed 3,000 dirhams each for those slaves who participated in the Battle of Badr. Now, dear viewers, when it comes to Ummahatul Mu'mineen, the honorable wives of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, subhanallah, once it is stated that a lot of wealth came to Farooq Azam radiallahu anh. Now, he radiallahu anh called Abdurrahman bin Auf radiallahu anh, and with mutual consultation, the wazifa, the benefits for Ummahatul Mu'mineen was decided as 4,000 dirhams. Again, it is the close connection they have with the Prophet ﷺ that they were allotted 4,000 dirhams, and Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, he served them, looked after them in this manner. We can see, dear viewers, that when it came to look after the citizens of the state, when it came to look after the senior Sahaba, those who were closer to the Prophet ﷺ, how generous he radiallahu anh was. But as soon as it came to his own self or his family, he radiallahu anh was very, very cautious, just so no one can raise any fingers on him. It is stated that once the son-in-law of Farooq Azam radiallahu anh came in his court, and he asked him to be granted something from the Baitul Mal, from the treasury. Now Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, he said to him that, do you want for me that I meet my Rabb, my Lord Almighty, as a dishonest king? After saying this, he radiallahu anh gave him 10,000 dirhams from his own self. The wealth that was under his own possession, the wealth that belonged to him, not to the treasury, the state treasury, but the wealth that he was owner of. From that very wealth, from his personal wealth, he radiallahu anh gives him 10,000 dirhams. Allahu Akbar. When it comes to the soldiers, dear viewers, how Farooq Azam radiallahu anh looked after them. Allahu Akbar. Sayyiduna Ubaidah Salmani rahmatullah alayhi states that Farooq Azam radiallahu anh asked me that, what do you think, that what should be the benefit, the financial aid for every person, meaning every soldier? And he says that I replied that, Huzur, it should be this much. So Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, he said that if I stay alive, then inshallah, the wazifa, the financial aid, the benefit of every soldier would be 4,000 dirhams. 1,000 for his personal expenditure, 1,000 for his household, 1,000 for his war equipment, and 1,000 for his horse. Allahu Akbar. Dear viewers, this is how Farooq Azam radiallahu anh even looked after the soldiers, that if I stay alive, I would appoint 4,000 dirhams for them, so they can look after themselves, they can look after their families, they can spend on their war equipment, and they can also look after their horse. Dear viewers, once Farooq Azam radiallahu anh wrote a letter to Sayyiduna Abu Musa Ash'ari radiallahu anh and said that, first of all, give to those who pledged allegiance. Give to those Sahaba who pledged allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ under the tree. Appoint their wazifa, their benefit, as 200 dinar, and have same wazifa, same benefit for yourself, for your household, and same should be for Kharija bin Hudhafa radiallahu an. Why? Because he is a very brave person. And Uthman bin Qais bin Abul As should also be allocated with the same financial aid. He should also be allotted with the same amount because he is very hospitable. Now, dear viewers, how Farooq Azam radiallahu an again did a great favor to the commanders of the army, because some commanders of the army, dear viewers, what they would do is that they would, when they would come to their homes, they would busy themselves in other works. So Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, he sent an announcer, and through him had this instruction delivered that the financial aid, the benefits of those commanders, the commanders of the army, are still ongoing, and their household are also being given financial aid. There's benefits for the commanders themselves as well as for their family members. So they're not in need of doing anything else, any other work. And this is again the foresightedness of Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, that if those people, they're very, very important people, the commanders of the army, if they're engaged in other chores and other works, then their attention, their focus will be deviated from the core work upon which they're appointed. So Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, he made it clear to them that you are being supported financially. The state is supporting you. Then why do you need to engage yourself in other activities? Your household is being looked after. So this way he radiallahu anh, subhanallah, looked after them and made sure that there's no stone unturned when it comes to the army side of the things, which is very, very important for a state. Now, dear viewers, Farooq Azam radiallahu anh was also that personality who introduced financial aid, financial benefits for newborn babies. Allahu Akbar. The newborn babies who would be born, dear viewers, Farooq Azam radiallahu anh would also look after them financially. Initially, those children were looked after financially. Benefits were in place for those children who would have left breastfeeding, who would have come off from breastfeeding. They would start getting financial aid from the state. Because of this, there were some issues, because women would try their best to have children taken off from breastfeeding so that their financial aid could start. Now, because of this, some problems started to arise. When Farooq Azam radiallahu anh came to know about this, Allahu Akbar, he radiallahu anh, he introduced benefits, financial benefits for even newborn babies. And he made this announcement spread all across the Islamic kingdom that women shall not rush in having their children taken off from breastfeeding. As from now on, every newborn baby would also be given financial aid by the state. It was Farooq Azam radiallahu anh who introduced this welfare in the system at that very time as well, dear viewers. Subhanallah. Sayyiduna Iyas Ash'ari radiallahu anh states that Farooq Azam radiallahu anh had wazaif, had benefits in place for slaves, for maid servants, and even for horses. Allahu Akbar. Dear viewers, there's so much to discuss about Farooq Azam radiallahu anh and the great welfare system that he had introduced, the great system of financial aid that he gave to the citizens of the Islamic Empire of the time. Subhanallah. This was at a time when this thing was completely and totally unprecedented. This was the, again, I use the same word, foresightedness. This was the wisdom, the economic and political acumen of Farooq Azam radiallahu anh, that all the citizens of the Islamic Empire at the time were very well looked after, and they were financially very well off. Now, dear viewers, on your TV screens, you would be able to see a chart. And this chart breaks down the financial incentives, the benefits that were given to certain people during the time of Farooq Azam radiyallahu anhu. So you can see that at the top of the list of this chart are the Sahaba who participated in the Battle of Badr. So for them was 5,000 dirhams, and these are on annual basis. Then were Muhajireen Awwal, Ansar Sahaba, the children of those Sahaba who participated in the Battle of Badr, Ummahatul Mu'mineen, and all the soldiers. They were given 4,000 dirhams. The next category was of those who were beloved of the Prophet ﷺ. They were given 3,500 dirhams. Then those slaves who participated in the Battle of Badr, they were given 3,000 dirhams. Then the wish, the desire of Farooq Azam radiyallahu anhu was to have the benefits of every single individual to be at least 2,000 dirhams. Then came Muhajirat Awwaliyat, the female companions who migrated in the early days, and Hasnain Karimain, the gift that was presented to them from the spoils, 1,000 dirhams. Then came Baligh children. So they were given 600 dirhams. Then came the monthly financial present, hadiya, in the court of Hasnain Karimain. That was 500 dirham, but that was monthly. The earlier figures that we mentioned, they were annually, and this was 500 monthly. SubhanAllah, we can see that their figure is superior to all other figures. Look at the love Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh had for Hasnain Karimain radiyallahu anhuma, that their financial, what was presented to them, subhanallah, that was superior to everyone else. 500 monthly means 6,000 dirhams on annual basis, whereas in the chart the highest help is 5,000 dirhams, but Hasnain Karimain radiyallahu anhuma were given 6,000 per annum. And this also shows the love Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh had for the Ahlul Bayt, had for Hasnain Karimain radiyallahu anhuma. And then came the category of newborn babies. For them it was 100 dirham. Then comes the category of those who were present during Bayt-e Rizwan, those who were brave individuals, then those who were hospitable, and then came the expenses of the family members of the judges. All this was 200 dinars. The earlier ones were dirhams, and these were 200 dinars. So this chart, dear viewers, very briefly describes the whole structure of benefit system that Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh had implemented during his caliphate. During all this, dear viewers, do not forget one thing, that Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh wished for everyone to have at least 2,000 dirhams of benefits. But yet, what was the expenditure of Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh himself? It was 2 dirham daily, which works out to be 720 dirham, around 720 dirham annually, dear viewers, which is just a bit more than a child, whereas his wish was for everyone to have at least 2,000 dirhams. Allah, dear viewers, where would you find such example, such honesty, such discipline, such justice, such passion to serve the ummah, such passion of having welfare for the ummah? Allahu Akbar. This was totally unprecedented in the history of mankind. This is why we say Umar the Great. No doubt, dear viewers, Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh, personalities like Farooq Azam radiyallahu anh are a gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to this ummah. Inshallah, we'll discuss more about what he brought, how he revolutionized the entire system, the history after he became caliphate. We'll shed light on more of these affairs, inshallah, in our upcoming episodes. But today we just very briefly focused upon his benefit system and the welfare system that he introduced within his caliphate, within the Islamic empire. And we can see that how beautifully he introduced this entire system and how beautifully he established this system with discipline, with justice, where everyone was looked after, where everyone was very well off financially, where how he managed and brought everything under control, whether it was the army, whether it was the judiciary, whether it was other authorities and officials. He brought everything within control, and he had them looked after very, very cleverly from financial perspective. Everyone was very well off, but his own simplicity was such that the amount that was apportioned for one child, he would have that amount for himself and his entire family. Allahu Akbar, just over that amount. Where would we find such examples from, dear viewers? Where would we find such personalities from? Allahu Akbar. We pray to Allah Almighty that may Allah Almighty shower His choicest and choicest and choicest of mercies and blessings upon our master, our leader, the second Caliph of Islam, Sayyiduna Umar Bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu, and may Allah Almighty forgive us all without accountability for His sake. Ameen. Bijahi khatamin nabiyyin sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Sallu ala al-habib sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
The second Caliph of Islam, Umar Bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu. Umar Bin Khattab radiyallahu